Written by Margaret and H.A. Ray, Carious George was a series of book-turned-kids show about a monkey and his best friend. George is BFFs with a man with a yellow hat and lives at his house in an unnamed city where the two go off on adventures together. Now, as a monkey, George tends to get into some pretty interesting situations that his friend, of course, saves him from, and that's essentially the premise of the show and the books. So with that in mind, it's time to go bananas. I really need to stop doing that. It's so lame and I cringe while I'm making these jokes. Either way, what is up, you guys? I hope you are having an awesome day. I'm your host, Eamon Hassan. Welcome back to another video. Today, I am bringing you the top 10 scary Carious George theories. Starting us off with number 10 is the origin theory. Now, this one is dark as hell and was shared by Use the Dad Pool. Now, they claim that the character of George was based on a 4 or 5-year-old child that was afflicted with some sort of developmental delay. The boy's mom died during childbirth, and the man with the yellow hat is his dad, who then starts suffering from PTSD and depression after losing his wife. And that actually explains a lot. It explains why the man does such a terrible job of keeping George at bay and why everyone else in the community just helps him out. The only reason George is free to run amok throughout town is because everyone knows him. He's that one troublesome kid. The man can also be seen crying alone a lot, which is also why he leaves George alone to go on his own little adventures. Why does he wear yellow, you may be wondering? I was wondering too. His late wife bought him the outfit, and so he wears it all the time, and that's also why he literally risks his life just to save his hat. George, on the other hand, genuinely believes he is a monkey, and everyone around him supports him because the actual truth is just that much more horrid. I love monkeys. I think they're really, really cute. Not gonna lie. Coming in at number 9 is Escaping the Nazis. Now, Carious George almost never got published because the authors were in a rather precarious situation. Margaret and H.A. Ray were German-born Jews who were fleeing to Paris on bike back in June of 1940. Hans put together 2 bikes with spare parts that he had found, and they ran away from the impending Nazi invasion with the book's manuscript in tow. Before it was George, it was Raffi the monkey, and the story was called The Adventures of Fifi. I don't know how you get Fifi from Raffi, but okay. Now, when the two got to Paris, they first found shelter in a farmhouse, then a stable, but because of their German accents, one official thought they were spies. The couple were apprehended and they searched Hans' satchel, and seeing that Fifi was just a kid's story, they actually let them go. So Fifi, or George, actually saved them not only from the Nazis, but from Parisian authorities as well. At number 8, we have the George effect. Let's just look at where George lives for a second and the fact that everything is almost too good to be true. Redditor Moxie79 claims the monkey has some sort of protective superpowers, and here is why. Firstly, there are no huge corporate businesses in the show. Every shop he interacts with is usually a small business and is shown to be owned by one person, yet it's completely thriving. There's essentially no pollution or negative human environmental impact, and he's out here swimming in a coral reef that seems untouched by any greenhouse gases whatsoever. He even says in one episode that there are more stars in the city than in the country, and it's like, which city, George? Which city is he living in where he can see more stars? Like, that's not even possible. Kids walk around freely and unsupervised in the show because apparently the threat of strangers or kidnapping just isn't even a thing. There are no robberies or murders, no deaths, no illnesses, nothing bad. The George effect, ladies and gentlemen. The George effect. Filling on the 7th slot is the Midnight Cowboy. This one's saucy, this one is a bit racy. Now, admittedly, this one made me laugh, but I can totally see it. Shared by Reddit user 2721West, this theory proposes that a man with a yellow hat is actually a male escort or a high-class pimp. I mean, who really wears a full yellow suit anyway? He literally never has to go to work, yet somehow has a house in the country and one in the city. How's he even affording that? Who is paying these bills and mortgages? He has an exotic pet, and in almost every book he goes and meets some random woman for a trip or surprise, and then forgets about George altogether. A trip or a surprise? Come on, we all know what that means. You're a pimp. Now at number 6 are the gold diggers. So the man with the yellow hat doesn't really date anyone in the books or the show. Based on this theory from Reddit user Bad Speller, they think the man is an extremely wealthy heir to the Glass dynasty, and that everyone that works at the museum with him wants his money. Professor Wiseman, the woman he sees the most romantically and consistently throughout the show, tries to use her charm and lure him to her, and I guess marry him, kill him, then get his fortune. Now, I am saying she's a gold digger. Professor Einstein and Pizza, on the other hand, are always actively trying to kill him by getting the man and George into high-risk situations with sabotaged equipment. It's honestly a hard life being rich. Can't relate. Coming in at number 5 is racism. I feel like every kids show has some sort of theory about it being racist, and Carious George is no exception. Reddit user mutant_llama1 realized that no one treats George like a monkey. Even when people meet him for the first time, not a single person is ever like, whoa, you're a monkey. The theory suggests that it's because George is not a monkey at all, but a small black boy. Bill gets super offended when George wins in the bow contest, and his ribbon refers to him as a monkey because he is a city kid. In another episode, George steals a bunch of things from different people in order to build a treehouse, and everyone concludes it's George who was the thief pretty damn quickly. Racial profiling or stereotyping much? I don't think so. At number 4 are the Quints. Now, the cute little old Quints are recurring characters throughout the series. Quints actually stands for quintuplets, since it's referring to 5 siblings, wherein Quint, aka Mr. Quint, is the oldest. Now, Clint is a fisherman and he enjoys boating and marine life and is George's friend. Then comes Flint, who's a station master, and Wint, who's a police officer. The youngest 2 Quints are sisters Mint and Sprint. Mint prints money, whereas Spring is an Olympic jogger. As you can tell, their parents got very lazy when naming them. Well, in a shocking revelation, according to Redditor Bad Speller, the Quints aren't siblings, nor are they even genetically related. They are a cult, my friends, and Aunt Margaret was also part of the cult but managed to escape with her kids Steve and Betsy. Filling an number 3 slot is Bill. Now let's talk about the boy next door for a hot second, shall we? Now, for some reason, in the show and the book, Bill is the most oblivious to the fact that George is a monkey and forever tries to convince himself he is in fact just another city kid. But what if George and Bill are a lot closer than both of them even realize? Shared by Redditor Bad Speller, this theory suggests that Bill could be the illegitimate son of the man and Professor Wiseman, and he's actually being raised by Betsy and Steve's biological mom. I mean, Bill does resemble the two quite well, and maybe that's why he's so in denial about George not being a monkey. He just wants a little brother so bad. I get it, Bill. Now, at number 2 is The Brainwashed Prisoner Part 1. Now, I think this theory was really well researched when I was reading it. They even had book illustrations accompanying every one of their points. I was like, wow, my English teacher would be so proud of you. It was a perfect PE paragraph, point, evidence, explain. They got it all. So this theory posits that George was in fact an African prisoner. The man with the yellow hat is in Africa when he sees George eating bananas and just vibing. He then likes him and wants to take him home. He literally then captures him and puts him on a boat, and he even jumps out to try and escape but nearly drowns and dies. The sailors then rescue him, and after that George promises to be obedient. When they finally get to the city, the man takes him home and gives him a bunch of alcohol and a pipe, and essentially drugs and subdues him, and it gets worse. And finally, you guys, at number 1 is The Brainwashed Prisoner Part 2. Now, after being kidnapped and drugged, George accidentally calls the fire department and then gets thrown in jail for it. Thankfully, he escapes his unjust imprisonment, but at this point, he's tired as hell, which is when he finally sees the man with the yellow hat once again. Now, thrilled to see his captor, George goes to him and ends up getting placed in a zoo. George is all smiles and happiness, but he's been so brainwashed that he isn't even aware he's living in a prison. From living peacefully in the wild to be kidnapped, forced into a new place, and then into a jail. The theory even linked the whole show to colonization in a way, and how the man literally invades George's paradise with a gun and forces him to live a completely foreign lifestyle. And if he doesn't understand what's going on, he gets punished for it, and we see him trying to escape this oppressive civilization many times. And that is it for today's video, guys. Carious George, I feel like it's so old. I never watched much of it, but I knew enough to be able to make the video. Let me know if you guys watched it growing up. As always, I'm your host, Eamon Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Starting us off at number 10 is the origin theory. The origin theory. Oh, my arms are toned there, even though I haven't worked out my arms in a very long time. We're fleeing Paris on bike, but fleeing Paris? Was they fleeing Paris? As well. Go George, it's your birthday, we gon' pot. Quintuplets, since it's referring to 5 siblings, we're in Quint, oh my god, this is gonna be such a tongue twister. Quint,